Hello, and welcome to Detaching and Reattaching Baselines using Emerald Associates P6-Loader. The reason why you may want to do this is if you need to migrate both projects and baselines into a new database. One of our clients had literally thousands of projects to migrate from one database into another. All those projects we were able to do in about a fifth of the time. Whether you're using P6 or the P6-Loader, these steps need to be done. In the original database, you need to unassign the baseline from the project, meaning the primary baseline. Then restore that baseline as a project. Then you would migrate those projects and baselines into your new database, and then restore the project as baselines in the new database, and then reassign that primary baseline to your project. When using P6 itself, you have to do each project individually. So you would need to open up that project, and then once it was open, you could go to the project tab up here, and you would go to your Assign Baselines. You would need to assign the current project as the primary baseline to your project, and then once you did that, you could actually restore the baseline as a project. I'm only going to use one baseline for the interest of time, but you would need to restore each one of the baselines that you had for a project individually. So not only may you have thousands of projects, but you may have several baselines that are attached to that project, and you would need to restore each one of those if you wanted to take them all over. Once it is restored, you could take both the projects and the baselines, export them, and then import them into your new database. Once they got there, you would want to restore the baselines to your project as baselines. So you would go in and you'd maintain your baseline. You would say you want to add, and it would go out and you would need to find it so that you could select it and then restore it as a baseline to your project. Imagine doing this for thousands of projects with several baselines, and keep in mind that this is just one baseline that we're working with here. So in the interest of time, this takes quite a while to accomplish, having to do it individually. Once you have that baseline restored as a baseline to your project, you could go in and then you would need to assign the primary baseline again. So quite a long, lengthy, drawn-out process. Again, we only did one project. This, if you had 1,000 of them, it would take a very long time. And in this demo, for the purpose of time, we're going to work with 4. But, you know, just kind of think of the translation in time between that. In P6-Loader, what we would need to do is we would extract the information that we needed. We only need 2 modules for this particular project. We would need the project information, and we would need the baseline project information. Then we would go down and we would select the projects that we would want to work with. In this case, like I said, we're just going to do those 4 projects, so I would drill down to where I wanted to select my projects, select them using a check mark, which is going to everything underneath it, select those also, and then I would submit my extraction. Once the extraction is complete, I would download it and open it up, and it's going to open up in Excel. You can see that I have 2 tabs, my project tab and my baseline project tab. And in the project tab, you'll see that we have our project information. And over here in this current baseline project ID is the primary baseline that is assigned to my project over here. In my baseline project tab, we have our projects, and it gives us the baselines that are associated with that project. So as you can see, our West TA actually has 2 baselines, as you saw when we were over in P6. Now what you want to do is you want to save this file as your original file so that you can go back to it for each step. So we're going to save this as the original, and I'm going to put a 1 next to it so it's easy to get to when we need to. We're going to save this as an original, and we're going to go back to this file every time we do a step. In this step, we're going to unassign that baseline from the project, which means we're going to take that primary baseline and just detach it so that it's no longer assigned as a primary baseline. We're going to use our Excel file that we extracted as our original, and we're going to delete our baseline tab or baseline sheet because we don't need it for this particular step. In our project tab, where we have our current baseline project ID assigned, we want to say we don't want those assigned anymore. So what we're going to do is put null in brackets instead of the current baseline, and we're going to copy that down, which is going to tell P6-Loader that we want to unattach those baselines. So then we're going to save this as a different file, and we're going to call this our unassign. Once we've done that, we can go into our P6-Loader and browse to that file, select it, tell it to open, and then we're going to say upload that file. It's going to be a really quick process, and then we can go back to our P6 and refresh our P6. You'll see that the baseline is going to go away here because those are the primary assigned baselines. And another note here is that I do have an extra column that indicates which projects were my original projects. So when we do migrate those over, we will find that we have a very easy way to determine which were our original projects and which ones were baselines that needed to be reattached. Our next step is to restore all the baselines as projects. So if you have one or many baselines, this is going to restore all of them to projects with the P6-Loader. So we're going to go back to our original file, and we're going to delete the project tab this time because we don't need to use it in our upload this time. And what we're going to do is, you can see we have a column here that's called Restore Project. And essentially, if we put true in this column, what we can do is indicate to P6-Loader that we want to make all of those baselines projects again. So we can go out and save this as another file for us to run, and we're going to call this Restore. And then we can load it using the P6-Loader. We go out and browse, open it, and tell it to upload. Now that it is done, we would go to back to P6 and we would refresh. Once we are refreshed, you can see that we now have all of our baselines detached, which is indicated over here by the empty fields that don't say original. So from here, what we would do is we would essentially export these projects, and we could do it all at once, out of our database, and then we would once we had them exported, we could import them into the new database. So we would open them up. We would select File and Export. We would click through. You can see that we have all of these ready to export out. Tell it where we would want this export, and then we would finish. So now we're going to assume that we have our projects and our baselines imported into our new database, and we want to restore these baselines to the projects, and then we want to assign the primary baseline. Again, we would go back into our original file, and we want to reattach those baselines. So we don't need the project baseline this time. So we're going to delete it. But we are going to use our baseline project tab, and we're going to rename it to the project tab so that we can restore those baselines to our projects as baselines. So all we have to do is change that to project, and then we're going to save it. No need to enter any additional information since we want to restore it as we extracted it in the original database. Once we have it saved, we can go back to P6-Loader, browse, select it, and upload it. Once it is complete, we can go into our P6, refresh again, and you can see that our baseline projects are now assigned again to their proper projects as baselines. So now what we would like to do is just reassign that primary baseline. One last time, we are going to go and open up our original file. We do not need our baseline tab this time, but we do need our project tab because we want to add these as current baselines to our projects. No need to change any data, but we want to save it, and we're going to call it Reassign. Go to P6-Loader, browse for it, select, and upload. And once it is completed, we can go into P6. Again, refresh our screen or our data, and we'll see that those baselines have been restored as primary baselines, all based on the data from our original database. So Emerald has over 20 years experience in many different programs in industries. We have a team that is located all over the world. We know the tools and we know how to apply them effectively for success. Feel free to contact us either by phone or get more information out on our Emerald website. I thank you for joining me, and have a great day.